Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links is a game originally for mobile devices that released internationally on January 11th, 2017. It featured a condensed card pool and simplified rule set to better accommodate smaller screens. By early 2017, the Link era was about to blast off in a major way, but in Duel Links, Axe Raider was the strongest tributeless normal summon, and he was hard to get. Despite opening to a format where Summon Axe Raider Pass was a decent first turn end board, Duel Links would evolve over time, much like the main game. Over the years, new cards have steadily and sometimes shockingly quickly crept the game of the power, and new summoning mechanics opened to Duel Link strategies to synchros, Xyz, pendulums, and even Link monsters. In Duel Links, you can even rush duel now, a new format with simplified card effects to make the game more accessible to younger players that was introduced in 2020, but hasn't yet printed internationally at the time of the scriptwriting, making Duel Links the only place the new format is in many languages. All of this to say, Duel Links is way more complicated than it was back in the Axe Raider days of 2017. So this top 10 list will help new players navigate the game. Our number 10 tip for new Duel Links players is more for folks who have played Master Duel or have experienced IRL formats, because there are a few gameplay differences to get used to. Duel Links mostly uses the speed duel rules, and in fact was the progenitor of the format. This means you'll have slightly smaller fields with only 3 main monster zones and 3 spell and trap card zones. You'll still have the customary 1 deck, 1 graveyard, extra deck, field spell, and extra monster zones, but serious board builders will want to be aware of the smaller space they'll be working with. Additionally, starting hand size is reduced to 4, a deck list runs 20 to 30 instead of 40 to 60. There's also no main phase 2, so you'll have to get your board set before the battle phase, but on the upside, Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder will be much less of a threat if it ever makes it to the game. Finally, there are skills which can alter the duel in large and small ways, often giving strategies otherwise trapped in the shadow realm of being way too inconvenient or a chance to see play. If you're not just new to Duel Links, but new to Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, this will all take much less getting used to, so don't worry. You've already got an advantage over experienced duelists. And at number 9, when you first enter the world of Duel Links, it's pretty small. You'll start with either Seto Kaiba or Yamayugi as the playable characters and navigate a small map with 4 areas full of duels and resources. This isn't really relevant to the tip, but forget the little yellow exclamation points. They're not important and basically just exist to clutter your screen. Click them if you're tired of seeing them, and we'll get back to business. What do you do when you first start Duel Links? You're going to have a ton of notifications to click through once the characters are done chatting and released into the world. Collect your freebies, but don't use them just yet. We're going to talk about that a little later in this list. Firstly, you'll want to check out the little techno stage circle at the top left of your screen. Once you're off the ground, stages will no longer be super important, but initially you'll want to focus on fulfilling the requirements to jump through the first few levels. Currently, there are 8 world hubs in Duel Links. Each hub comes with a new set of stages and a board of unlockable characters. These will be important for harvesting gems and getting access to cards and skills to let you play new decks. Once you hit stage 7 in the Duel Monsters world, which is your starter world, you'll receive a mission that upon completion will unlock the Dark Side of Dimensions world. At stage 8, you'll receive a mission that lets you go for the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, with the other worlds opening at stage 9. Coming off talking about what you can do, for the number 8 tip on this list, let's talk about what you can't do. Some cards have restrictions placed upon them in what is referred to as the forbidden/limited list. If you've got Yu-Gi-Oh! Experience, you're probably familiar with the concept, but listen up because it's a little harsher in Duel Links. There are 4 classifications for cards on the list. Forbidden cards cannot be used at all, and then we've got limit 1 through 3. Often, limit 1 cards are key cards for specific archetypes, but you can only acquire 1 copy of Monster Reborn anyway, so why limit it to 1 per deck? Well, if you're running Monster Reborn, you can't use any other limit 1 cards, effectively locking Monster Reborn out of decks like Trickstars and Infernities that need their limit 1 spot for crucial combo pieces. The limit 2 and 3 pools work the same way and are very important considerations when deck building. Tip 7 is a big one: how to acquire cards. There are a lot of ways to do this and helpful rarities to guide you. You'll notice cards are divided into ultra rare, super rare, rare, and normals, and legendary, but these cards can only be acquired through special means and we can ignore them for now. Generally, normals and rares are not difficult to obtain. Ultras and supers, however, can be tough, but it's not all super straightforward. A super rare from a mini box are way more valuable than ultra rares that can be acquired from dueling random characters, or spending some resources at the card trader. So how do you set off choosing what to chase? In the end, that's going to depend on what cards you like, but there are a few general concepts that can guide you. Mini boxes are generally going to help you build a deck faster, as they are more targeted and take less gems to comb through. You are more likely to find an ultra or super rare from a main box on any given pool, but these come from a wider pool. So unless you want everything in a box, you're less likely to specifically get what you want. When you're deciding when to dive into boxes, especially older ones, keep in mind that they go on sale half off every few months. This can really relieve the pressure on your gems. Structure decks like Thousand Illusion and Secret of the Magicians, and bundles like the ones from Mystical Space Typhoon and Book of Moon are great, reliable ways to spend your starting gems and your game off the ground. But because these bundles often come with a large set of pools from the current most recent box, it's worth waiting until release you like to take advantage of these free pools. And now let's talk about tickets. You're going to receive a lot of them, and they're going to be confusing, because they'll pull from different pools of rewards depending where you get them from, and it'll basically be impossible to keep track of. One thing you need to be aware of immediately is the difference between vanilla and dream tickets. Dream tickets have a little dragon head on them and should not be spent without careful consideration. These dream tickets can be redeemed for cards from the main and mini boxes, and used wisely can save you a lot of gems and time by getting easy copies of expensive cards. But there's still one more caution to go over with dream tickets. Another in-game currency exists called chips. These little rainbow coins can be exchanged at the card trader for ultras and supers from main and mini boxes too, but only older ones. So if you've got your eye on a nice ultra rare Into the Void or Drowning Mirror Force, it's good to remember that you can use chips for those, and save your dream tickets for something more recent. Normal tickets you can be a little easier with. You'll get more, so go a little crazy if you feel like it. Get experimental. You can redeem the SR ticket for Reign of Mercy for your destined to fail but will surely win sometimes and you'll feel great about it nurse burn strategy. But still pay attention, because although you can get Reign of Mercy from tickets the game gives you for free, and from dueling Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Lord Nurse Refugio can only be obtained from the card pool for SR tickets received as a reward for accumulative ranked duel victories. You can see what pool a ticket comes from the text beneath the ticket itself in the treasure box menu. Just remember that tickets that come from ranked duels are going to offer a wider spread of rarer cards in addition to the normal stuff. So don't spend your ranked tickets on Dark Magician Girl no matter how cool she is. One final note before we move on from this very important tip: you can enter the Duel Studio and view the top 50 most popular cards of any given type right now. This can be a great way of identifying both current staples and current meta threats. Now that we've covered acquiring cards, let's take a step further for tip 6, when not to acquire cards. To properly address this, we'll need to refer back to our friends from the Forbidden/Limited list, and an example will be useful, so meet the Fur Hires, one of the strongest decks to dominate Duel Links during their heyday. Originally released into Duel Links with the Clash of Wings mini-box on June 18, 2018, Fur Hires were instantly the biggest threat on the app. With every low-level main deck monster able to special summon other Fur Hires from the hand, the strategy had a level of consistency and power Duel Links hadn't yet seen. And on June 27th, a new ban list nerfed meta threats like Sylvans and Cyber Angels to clear the way. For a brief span, Fur Hire players enjoyed a tier 0 meta, and as a result took a knock on their next ban list, which came out on August 29th. Donpa, Marksman for Hire, and Dinah, Hero for Hire, were limited to 2 and 1, locking players out of running important staples like Enemy Controller, which for a long time was the defining limit 2 card you'd have to pass up to slot in more specific deck requirements. And then Wiz Sage for Hire was stuck with limit 2 on October 30th, and restrictions didn't begin to lift for Hires until March of 2020. Basically, the lesson here is that the wheel turns. The first one now will later be last. Don't worry if a deck feels too good for you to ever match up. The times are changing, and if a deck is overpowered, it can be risky to spend all your resources going after cards that will shortly be knocked down by the Forbidden/Limited list. That's not to say you should never chase the meta, but just that an awareness of the changing game can help you from feeling overwhelmed and letting a sense of pervading hopelessness goad you into investments you don't want to make. We're halfway through this list now, so let's make tip number 5 about saving time. There are a lot of playable characters in Duel Links, and all of them have level rewards that you're going to want, even if that's just more gems. This can be a slog, especially when a card you want is locked behind a character's 45th level. So, what are the most efficient ways to grind? First, every so often, Konami will initiate a period of bonus experience where duelists will yield 1.5 times the normal amount of XP. Jump on these because you won't regret it. Second, after you click on a standard duelist, check out the little option at the bottom of the screen and make sure it's set to rewards times 3. This will set it so that when challenging standard duelists for XP, you can triple the rewards for each match at the cost of clearing 3 duelists instead of 1. This is just a pure time save that stacks the bonus XP period. Make sure you set triple rewards at the gate too. Generally, challenging legendary duelists at the gate isn't the quickest way to grind XP because you can't auto-duel. But during duelist unlock events, when the gate turns red and the new challenger appears, you can use the auto-duel feature against the newcomer. So set rewards to times 3 and only ever play the level 10 versions of the challenger, and you'll pretty much never lose and harvest 1500 XP every match. 2250 if bonus XP is on. Finally, you'll accumulate items called duel orbs over time. These can be spent to refresh your standard duel list by tapping the little orb icon in the top left of your screen. You'll get more of these, but they're not bottomless, so wait for bonus XP to spend them if you can. This tip is less relevant for your day-to-day dueling, but important to be aware of so you don't miss out on cool stuff. While cards that arrive during big events will probably be obtainable shortly via tickets if you miss them, sometimes events dispense cards sneakily, and then years pass and there's still no way to get that card if you miss the temporary event. These are usually events like wandering duelists who show up in the duel world but not the gate, and the bingo boards and trials offered by Tour Guide from the Underworld in the Duel Links overworld. In fact, in Glorious Bastion, a temporary event where Sebastian Misawa got mad for a few weeks that occurred in November 2018 and January 2019, gave duelists a chance of looting Polychem Critter Dioxogre, which wouldn't be introduced to the card trader until January of 2021, effectively time-locking many players out of running chem critters. Another example is the card Magical Planter, which allows you to send a continuous trap from your side of the field to the graveyard to draw 2. Like Dioxogre, you can only get these cards from leveling a character, Odin, but if you miss the temporary duel challenges of November 2018, the card flipper campaigns from August and November 2019, and Mission Reach of January 21, then you have no way of acquiring 2 or 3 copies without burning a dream ticket. It's not like Magical Planter is going to greatly evaluate your game, but it's a fun card that can boost your draw power in an otherwise inconvenient deck, and you might wish you had one. So even if you're on dueling hiatus, keep an eye on what's released into the game if you can. And at number 3, here's another tip for veteran players getting into Duel Links. Good cards from Master Duel and TCG aren't always good here. Let's look at Drone Lockbird, a card with a staggering quantity of competitive placements in the TCG. It's a level 1 to win spellcaster with no attack and defense that can be sent from hand to grave in response to your opponent adding a card from deck to hand. For the rest of the turn, nobody can fetch from the deck. In other formats, this can really mess opponents up, and theoretically it could be useful in Duel Links too, but nobody runs it now, and nobody's ran it since the release New Year's headed into 2023. Maybe that'll change eventually, but Drone Lockbird's Search Interruption is less devastating when your starting hand can be 1/5 of your deck, not to mention many skills that completely circumvent any plays Droll might counter. It's a whole new Duel Monsters world. Massive Morph is broken, and Ancient Fairy Dragon is largely ignored. Number 2 is an important tip for every Duel Links player. Get familiar with your Blue Eyes White Dragon matchups. Whether you're running Kaiba's favorite dragon / ancient reincarnation girlfriend, or just trying to not eat a burst stream of destruction, you'll want to be familiar with the ins and outs of this deck. In the earlier days of Duel Links, using Kaiba Man or Ancient Rules to crank out a Blue Eyes instead of Champion's Vigilance negate was a tough move to counter. Then in the Synchro era, Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon and Azure Eyes Silver Dragons coupled with the White Sun of Ancients and Dragon Spirit of White equaled Oh Ra, what do I do? And just when you thought the game had moved past Blue Eyes for a while, the Dark Side Dimensions world was added with the Alternative Evolution skill that gave you access to Blue Eyes Alternative Dragon. Then Blue Eyes Alternative Dragon was added to the game. Then everyone got multiple copies. And then we got Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon with the Blue Eyes Dimension skill, which made them even easier to play, giving you pass into Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon and Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon. Then we got Successor Soul and Ultimate Fusion and the new Battle Chronicle skill. Be careful in Duel Links, y'all. Here be dragons. So, what's the best way to square against Blue Eyes? Well, Buster Blader is a great anti-meta deck to consider when the skies are alive with Dragonfire. Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman, can be acquired with chips and other key cards. Buster Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman and Destruction Swordsman Fusion can be obtained through the Power Bravery minibox, which can go on sale for 50% off. But what about more general counters? Blue Eyes loves having dragons in hand and dragons in grave, so banishing is by far your best bet. Karma Cut is a normal trap that discards 1 to banish an opponent's monster, and then banishes every card in the grave to share the target's name. This card utterly dismantles Blue Eyes, but is a danger from Dragon Spirit of White, which banishes one of your back row on summon. The best way for your opponent to cheat out Dragon Spirit of White is through the White Zone of Ancients, which must be sent to the graveyard to activate its effect. So, if you've got a trap you're counting on to counter Blue Eyes, don't crash into their set monster. Let it sit there and choose your moment. Also, don't target Dragon Spirit of White with card effects while you control a monster, because it contributes itself as cost in response to summon a Blue Eyes from hand. Cards that let you banish your opponent's graveyard are incredible Blue Eyes counters. So consider DD Crow or decks that can play around Dimensional Fissure. This spell's Successor Soul is easily searchable with skills and contribute one of your effect monsters and one of theirs to summon a Blue Eyes or Spirit Dragon of White from deck. So be ready for that. With the advent of Ultimate Fusion, non-targeting battle traps that affect the entire field are great ways to stop your opponent from steamrolling over your board full of big flying lizards led by Dragon Master Knight. Consider Drowning Mirror Force, consider the original Mirror Force, consider running Rainbow Life with Dark Hole, consider running Super Polymerization with Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon, and Madraga the Swamp in decks that don't need the limit 1 slot for something else. Play dirty or become dragon food. No one wants to be defeated behind Blue Eyes. And our number 1 tip for Duel Links players, make use of the resources made by the Duel Link community. You're already doing that by watching this video, but there are other great resources out there for navigating Duel Links right now. Right now, DuelLinksMeta.com is probably going to be your best friend for keeping up to date on events and understanding the state of the game. If something ever feels confusing, you probably aren't the first to encounter the problem. Don't work harder than you have to, becoming king of games is all about play. Alright, and that's the list. If you have more tips for aspiring and experienced Duel Links players, or if you have hot strategies to demolish Blue Eyes decks, or just ideas of future videos just like this one, I'd love to write them down in the comments below.